The live funeral service, the special official funeral of Advocate George Bizos, taking place at the Greek Orthodox Church in Johannesburg. On the podium there was George Bizos' son, Professor Damon Bizos, speaking about his father, saying things like his father exposed the evilness of the apartheid regime. Of course, we expand on the discussion here in studio with Newzroom Africa News Director Katy Katopodis. Katy, as Damon stands on that podium and speaks about his father, one can almost imagine what the family must be thinking, how the family must be feeling, especially losing a loved one. It's almost like a surreal, overwhelming feeling as you listen into what other people have to say, as you surround yourself with all these faces. It really is a different sort of feeling.
Well, it certainly is something for the family, and I tell you why. Because not only is the Bizos family right now dealing with the death of Advocate George Bizos, but he died exactly 40 days after his brother, and in fact the very next day his sister also passed away. So 3 siblings in the Bizos family all died within a 41-day period, and that is quite something. And in fact we spoke a lot earlier about the symbolism of Greek culture and religion. 40 days is an extremely symbolic mark when it comes to the Greek Orthodox religion, and so for him to pass on the 40 days of his brother, the theory is that the soul roams the earth for those 40 days and is actually only released after that, and after a service is done by the priests again in church. So yes, they're dealing with a triple deaths of George Bizos, his brother and his sister. So it certainly is quite something for the family to be going through right now.
You speak about the church service and the manner in which it's conducted, and you mentioned the significance of this funeral service and the number of high priests, so to speak, who have come out to bid him farewell and make sure that they're there to see him through to the end, and also speak to the prayers and the service and uphold it to the standards of Greek culture. Well, when it comes to the Greek community, I don't believe that there has been a more high-profile funeral, and I'm not sure that there will be, to be quite honest, Paul. So an extremely high-profile event. We've seen the Archbishop Damaskinos. He is the Archbishop of Johannesburg and Pretoria. He was flanked by another 5 priests, in fact, from the various Greek Orthodox churches across Johannesburg as well. So extremely important that they are all there, showing us the significance of Advocate George Bizos, who himself, as we've heard before, our reporters on the ground told us, he was a man who attended church regularly. He was not an unfamiliar sight at church. He was not an unfamiliar sight in the community at all. In fact, very seldom would you have an event of a cultural nature or a community nature without Advocate George Bizos being there. And in fact, if he was missing, questions would be asked and questions would be raised. I know that every single Saheti event, be it a choir performance, be it an end-of-year production, be it a birthday, Advocate George Bizos was always in the front seat. And in fact, he would often get very teary because he would watch the pupils of the school sing and dance and perform and do what they needed to. And you could just see his face was completely overwhelmed with absolute pride. So it certainly was, he certainly will be missed, because he was very much a fabric of the community of the Greek community in Johannesburg, and he will be no longer, unfortunately. Certainly, you detail an extraordinary man who wanted to live an ordinary life with the people of his community.
Yes, most certainly. His entire life was peppered with stories of politics and justice and courtroom, but family as well. You spoke earlier, Paul, about the man who loved his vegetables and who would never go anywhere without offering some of his vegetables. We had his granddaughter, Eleni, on air just recently, who would always turn around and say to him, "Papu," grandfather in Greek, "Papu, you've given me too many vegetables, stop now." A vegetable garden, by the way, which his mother actually made for him when she visited him on one of her trips to South Africa from Greece. And of course, he just loved it from then.
Such a memorable stories that you speak of there, Katy. Of course, we will continue to bring you those live visuals of the funeral service of Advocate George Bizos taking place there at the Greek Orthodox Church in Hillbrow, Johannesburg. That service is still underway.